8 days ago, 6 of Donald Trump's own Supreme Court justices looked at his tariff regime and said two words that just changed the entire game: not authorized. The highest court in the United States just ruled that the president's sweeping emergency tariffs, the same tariffs he's been using to bully Canada for over a year, were illegal, unconstitutional, done. And that's not even the best part, because while the Supreme Court was tearing apart Trump's legal authority, the U.S. House of Representatives, controlled by his own party, voted to repeal his tariffs on Canada. Republicans turned on him. 6 of them crossed the aisle and said, "Enough is enough." And sitting in Ottawa, watching all of this unfold, is Mark Carney, calm, composed, holding Canada's most powerful card, one that the Pentagon is quietly terrified to lose. Let me show you exactly what's happening. Let me take you back, because this didn't happen overnight. For over a year, Donald Trump has been wielding tariffs like a weapon against Canada. 25% on most Canadian goods, tariffs on our steel, on our aluminum, on our lumber, on our automobiles. He used a law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, and he claimed that Canada wasn't doing enough to stop fentanyl from crossing the border. That was his excuse. His justification for punishing the most loyal trading partner America has ever had. And for a year, Canadian families felt it. Businesses on both sides of the border felt it. The average American household was paying an extra $1,500 a year because of these tariffs. That's not my number. That's from the Wharton School at UPenn. Real money out of real people's pockets. But here's what Trump didn't count on. He didn't count on Canada standing firm. He didn't count on Mark Carney refusing to blink. And he certainly didn't count on his own Supreme Court telling him he went too far. On February 20th, in a landmark 6-3 decision, the court ruled that IEEPA does not give the president the power to impose tariffs. Chief Justice Roberts, a conservative appointed by a Republican president, wrote that those two words, regulate and importation, buried in that law, quote, cannot bear such weight. He said the power to tax belongs to Congress, not the president, not the White House, Congress. And just like that, the legal foundation of Trump's entire trade war crumbled. Now think about what that means for you as a Canadian. It means the bully's biggest stick just got snapped in half by his own judges. If you believe Canada deserves to stand on its own 2 feet, hit that like button right now. Let's make sure every Canadian sees this story today. But here's where it gets really interesting. Trump didn't just lose in court. He lost inside his own house. On February 11th, 9 days before the Supreme Court ruling, the U.S. House of Representatives voted 219 to 211 to repeal his tariffs on Canada. 6 Republicans broke ranks. They looked at what these tariffs were doing to their own districts: farmers in Nebraska, manufacturers in Colorado, steel workers in Washington state. And they said, we can't do this to our people anymore. Trump was furious. He went on Truth Social and threatened every Republican who voted against him. He said they would seriously suffer the consequences come election time. But it didn't matter. The vote passed. That tells you something critical about the mood in Washington right now. Now stay with me on this, because this next part changes everything. While Trump is scrambling, fighting his own courts, fighting his own Congress, Carney is quietly playing the long game. And the card he's holding? Critical minerals. Canada sits on some of the largest reserves of critical minerals on the planet: cobalt, lithium, nickel, rare earth elements. 31 minerals that Canada classifies as critical. These are the materials that go into every F-35 fighter jet, every Javelin missile, every electric vehicle battery, every semiconductor. The Pentagon needs these minerals the way your car needs gasoline. Without them, the American defense industry grinds to a halt. And this is the part most people missed entirely. In December, Carney stood beside Ontario Premier Doug Ford and announced a fast-track framework for mining development, including the Ring of Fire, a massive mineral deposit 500 kilometers north of Thunder Bay. But he said something that sent shockwaves through Washington. He said American access to Canadian critical minerals is not assured. He said Canada has other partners in Europe, for example, who are very interested in those value chains. Do you hear what he's really saying? He's saying the days of America assuming it can just reach across the border and take what it needs are over. Canada's minerals, Canada's terms. And if Washington doesn't come to the table with respect, Carney will sell those minerals to Berlin, to Tokyo, to Seoul. The Pentagon knows this. Defense analysts know this. That's why you're seeing American think tanks like CSIS publishing reports saying Canada may be America's best hope for mineral security. They know they need us more than we need them. So let's put all the pieces together, because when you see the full picture, you realize Mark Carney is playing a completely different game than Donald Trump. Trump's IEEPA tariffs struck down by the Supreme Court. His emergency powers to bully Canada, gone. His own House voted against him. His replacement plan, a temporary 10% tariff under something called Section 122, it expires in 150 days unless Congress extends it. And given that Congress just voted against his Canada tariffs, good luck with that. Meanwhile, Carney has been diversifying. He's been building trade relationships with China, with Europe, with the Indo-Pacific. He's fast-tracking mineral development at home. He's signed auto manufacturing agreements with Germany. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly just returned from Berlin with a new memorandum of understanding for auto manufacturing investment. They're talking to Korean companies. They're talking to Chinese investors. The entire strategy is to make sure that Canada is never again dependent on a single market that can be weaponized against us. And here's the part that should make every Canadian proud. It's working. The world is noticing. International investors are looking at Canada and seeing exactly what Carney wants them to see: stability, rule of law, reliable partnerships, abundant resources. They're looking at the United States and seeing chaos, court battles, broken trade deals, and a president who threatens his own party members for voting their conscience. I want you to think about this. A year ago, when Trump first slapped those tariffs on us, a lot of people panicked. A lot of commentators said Canada would have to cave. They said we're too small, too dependent, too close to the American economy to fight back. And what happened? We didn't cave. We stood firm. Our prime minister told the most powerful country on earth that sovereignty is not negotiable. And now, a year later, it's Trump's tariff wall that's crumbling, not from Canadian pressure, but from the weight of its own contradictions. His own court, his own Congress, his own math. Now, I want to be real with you. This isn't over. There are still Section 232 tariffs on our steel, aluminum, and lumber. The CUSMA trade agreement is up for review on July 1st, and Trump, even wounded, is still dangerous. He'll find new legal tools. He'll push new threats. That's who he is. But the ground has shifted. The Supreme Court took away his most powerful weapon. Congress is pushing back. And Canada, our Canada, is no longer the quiet neighbor who nods along. We're a country with leverage, with global partnerships, with resources the world desperately needs, and with a prime minister who understands that you don't win a negotiation by begging. You win by making yourself indispensable. Our grandparents built this country with grit and hard work. They didn't ask for permission. They built something extraordinary. And right now, that same spirit is alive. It's alive in the mines of Northern Ontario. It's alive in the factories of Quebec. It's alive in the fields of the prairies. And it's alive in Ottawa, where a leader is finally playing the long game with the skill and the spine this moment demands. Tell me, what surprised you most about this story? Was it the Supreme Court ruling, the House rebellion, or the critical minerals card? I want to hear from Canadians right across this country. Drop your province and your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. This is what happens when Canada has real leadership. And honestly, I think we're just getting started.